Hello again, everyone. We are here with I don't know, Jim, creator of Fear the Phoenix, or co-creator, co-manager. What do we call you exactly?
I like to go with content contributor when it's good and no affiliation when it's bad.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, you got to keep that caveat in there for the athletic department, in case they see something they don't like. It definitely wasn't yours. No, yeah, guys, we're here with Jim Sarow from Fear the Phoenix. Jim is obviously, if you can see behind his left shoulder there, a big Green Bay fan. Funny enough, I've always said they run the best fan site in the league. That includes Norse Report. And the reason I say that is because you guys were actually the model that Chris and I, when we decided to take ours to WordPress, you guys were actually the model that we were kind of basing a lot of our stuff on. I was like, every time I was kind of looking at your site and like, we need to add this because they have it. We need to add this because they have it. And so I feel like we're always kind of chasing behind you guys. But it's a good thing. I'm not saying that to, say that we suck or anything. It's just, it's always good to like kind of look up above you and try to be better.
Yeah. And you know what? I give Brian Dickman, he's the main guy, and I give him a ton of credit. He takes it really seriously, does a great job. And my relationship with him started through direct messaging and, just offering suggestions and, ideas and putting stuff out there. And he just does a really great job. So it's really more Brian. Brian's the brains behind everything.
Oh, okay. Well, Brian couldn't be with us today, so he's not the one who we're going to suck up to. No, I'm just kidding. So Jim, I don't want to waste a ton of time just jumping right into it. The Horizon League, I don't know what we're going to call it. Do we call it standings? Do we call it rankings? Like the seed lines? I don't know. They came out today and they had NKU fourth, even though I believe we're third in conference right now. And they had Green Bay, I know somewhere in the middle. Was it like seventh or eighth? I think it was eighth, maybe. Or were you ahead of Milwaukee?
Yeah.
Seventh.
Yeah, seventh. They had them seventh.
Okay, yep. Seventh, ahead of Milwaukee. And so, we're not going to dive too deep into this. Jim, I know we'll talk a little bit about it as we get into this call, this show. But basically, the way the Horizon League's doing it this year is they're not looking at just the standings. They're looking at like win percentage, who you beat, if you won at home, and then like, or on the road, and then like number of games played. And there's also no transparency whatsoever with like what the formula is. So that kind of leads me to believe that maybe there is no formula, or maybe it's I don't know. I'm not trying to be a tinfoil hat conspiracy guy here, but it just seems weird.
Yeah, I look at those numbers, and you talk about going back and forth on Fear the Phoenix. I was going on that today. I'm like, I just don't understand where the stuff comes from. But
yeah,
especially when you stack them up against like the net as an example, it doesn't really tie out. And there wasn't a big non-conference season to sway that either. So it really is hard to understand. But.
So my theory is that they're basing it off of conference play, and they're obviously not weighting margin of victory. Because if they were doing that, like if margin was playing into it, right? States 1, 2, and 3, right? Yep. Yeah, exactly. And so it's just funny because they have this like little formula they came out with, and it seems like the fairest way to do it. But like Dennis Gates had kind of floated the idea from what we were hearing with the Horizon Roundtable. He was floating the idea about doing like a committee system or something, and the Horizon League, I guess, shut it down and went with the formula. But it's like, this is basically, it's working itself out sort of like a committee would probably anyway. It's just funny. But anyway, so Green Bay being 7th, I guess let's just go right into it. What has led to that being your guys' season outcome so far? What is this team like? What's your season looked like this year?
Well, one of the things I've heard you talk about with NKU that is really going to resonate as you look at the Green Bay roster is inexperience. They had the guys that people have heard of, PJ Pipes and Amari Davis, coming back. They had a transfer from Illinois State who played about 21 games as a junior for Illinois State, Josh Jefferson. And then they didn't have anybody else on the roster that played in a D1 game. And so we have just youth on youth on youth. And then on top of that, we actually start a walk-on. We were starting 2 walk-ons. And at points in time, we've played 3 walk-ons at the same time. And so what's kind of led to Green Bay's number is that you have total system change and philosophy change starting in June when Will Ryan was hired. And then you have guys that have not only, not played in that system, they haven't played D1 college basketball. And so the team has just been growing, tremendously, but they were starting from a point that was, about as low as you could get from a starting point in terms of experience and knowing what was going to go on for a D1 team.
Yeah, no, it's funny is like we have a parallel path, Green Bay and NKU. I mean, it's a little bit different because on the one hand, like with coaching, we're a year ahead of you. We're entering Darren Horn's second year. But on the other hand, in terms of players, your guys' key players, well, I should say 2 of your key players are returning, whereas we have some key players returning, but the main, contributors to our team are stepping into completely new roles this year. And then, like you said, you take out an entire offseason, right? I mean, these guys, I made the joke the other day that these guys got 20 minutes of weight training. These freshmen got 20 minutes of weight training this summer. And it was like, all right, let's go play some basketball.
Yep.
And it leads to, it looks like Green Bay losing your first 9 games, maybe something like that.
Yeah. Mix in there though, Kyle, in fairness to them, they played at Minnesota, at Wisconsin, and at Marquette. Yep. And, they're woefully undersized when you think about our roster. 6'8" is the biggest guy. 6'8", 220 is the biggest guy that plays. 6'8", 190 is the next biggest guy who's currently playing. So, you go into Minnesota and they've got Liam Robbins, who's 7 feet tall, and a bunch of other guys. You go and play, Nate Reavers or Dawson Garcia. I mean, those aren't games that you expect them to do well to begin.
No. And I wouldn't expect NKU to either. So that's a completely unfair.
Yeah.
But
then going in after that, they dropped a really tough double overtime game to Eastern Illinois at home, and I think that kind of took some wind out of their sails. Played Milwaukee okay, and then they went on the road to Wright State and then to Youngstown State before they got a win. So I think part of it too is scheduling really didn't favor them, but as it relates to the conference ranking system, scheduling's really helped them because they're not 7th in the standings, but they've played at Cleveland State and they've played at Wright State, who are the 2 best teams by a wide margin, and they didn't totally embarrass themselves. And I think that really has weighed, heavily for them being rated 7th, even though they're only, 6-10 in conference play.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is, so you say it, it started with playing the good teams. I'll obviously give them a pass on that. I'm the kind of person, I never hold teams losing to good teams. I never hold that against them. The only exception being probably me and Matt Dudek from Horizon Roundtable. He's a big OU guy. We kind of went back and forth on his philosophy that Oakland playing their non-conference schedule was good because it was like playing all the best teams. And I said, okay, look, yeah, that's what I said. I said, I'm willing to give you that. I'll even say every one of those games is good. I will say that, but you've got to enter conference play with a win or 2. And because if you don't know how to win, then you're going to just slide, like, especially a young team. I mean, that's a good way for your season to snowball. And it looks like that was almost the case for you guys going 0-5 in conference to start. But to their credit, like you said, it looks like, they got the 10-point win at Youngstown. to me, though, what's has to have saved the season was probably that overtime win at Oakland or versus Oakland at home, right? That's
Yep.
probably the pinnacle moment of the season where it was like, okay, this can be salvaged.
Yeah, I mean the Oakland games were tight. It wasn't like they won those games, that easily. They had to come from behind. One of those games, I mean, Oakland just absolutely tripped all over themselves. Like just,
Yeah. I think it was the
Campy
first
was
one.
yeah, Campy was in full meltdown mode afterwards. I mean, I thought he was gonna need, somebody, taking his belts away from him for the night in the hotel room. I mean, he was in a
Oh
he was in
my
a
God.
spot. Now I know that's not the most tasteful joke, but the point
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
making
yeah,
is
yeah. I
that
got you.
was, I mean, it was bad. And his post game interview was really bad. Green Bay kind of just hung around, did enough to win the game. But you know what? That's what good teams do. You look at Cleveland State as an example in this league. They don't blow most of the teams away. In fact, watch the Saturday game against Oakland. I mean, it just was another example of Oakland couldn't execute when Cleveland State could.
That's exactly right. Yeah. No, like, okay. So I said I wasn't going to bring up the Ken Palm stuff a lot, but Ken Palm's got the luck rating, right? And what it's funny because like the luck rating he says it's a way to kind of accommodate for like how lucky a team's been, basically how many things the algorithm missed and like can't really be explained. But the way I look at it is like luck rating is still that shows that a team can perform in moments when they, inevitably happens in basketball games. Like a team's not going to win by, unless you're Wright State, 20 every single game. You're going to have to beat out those or, get the balls bounced the right way every now and then.
Kyle, caveat, unless you're Wright State not playing on a Friday night on national TV, then they'll lose by 2.
Right. It's so weird, man. Last year was like a Sunday. It was Sunday at noon for them. It's always these like you know what I mean? Remember when I think they lost to like IUPUI or UIC or maybe both last year on a Sunday at noon, both times. And I'm just like, how do you do that? But anyway, okay. So Green Bay. Yeah. So you guys now take away the first 5 games. Y'all are 6-5 in your last 11 by my count. I think I'm counting that right. Yeah.
Yep.
So and it looks like pretty hit or miss. I mean, you beat Oakland twice. That's a good team. You beat Detroit Mercy, or you lost to Detroit Mercy twice. Detroit Mercy's better than 6, I think. Or at least this is the best Mercy team since NKU's been in the conference for sure. You lost twice to Wright State. It's okay. A lot of people are doing that. You lost twice to Cleveland State. A lot of people are doing that. And you split with IUPUI. So it's hard to make out what your team is this year in relation to like how they're going to fare against NKU. What can you tell me about, your general sense of like the season as a whole? Like, is this more of like hey, it's an asterisk year. Like it is what it is. If we win, we win. If we lose, nah.
Emotionally as a fan, I don't want to think of it as an asterisk type year. For the team though, based on the guys that they have, it is about learning on the job. This is, building the foundation for a winning program, I think. And, when you look at it, one of the issues that they run into is that, they can rely on Amari Davis and PJ Pipes and for the most part, Josh Jefferson to kind of do some things every game. But after that, it is just scrambling to find 2 or 3 other guys that, not necessarily breaking out, but just competing at a D1 level, in some of these games. And they'll have games where they play 6 forwards. They only have 2 forwards in the rotation in terms of they play 3 guards, 2 forwards most of the time. But they'll go through 6 different guys in a game trying to find somebody that can do anything in a game. And so some of the inconsistency is, just matchup driven, going against somebody. Like they lost to IUPUI in a game that they shouldn't have on Friday. And Elijah Goss had 15 and 15 or something like that. So they didn't have an answer for it. And so for them, a lot of it is like, okay, you're going to get, you know what you're going to get from Pipes and Davis and Jefferson, but what are you going to get from these other guys? And can they string together 2 or 3 good games in a row? And that we have not seen most of the other guys be able to do. We only see them string together 2 or 3 good plays, but not 2 or 3 good games yet.
Yeah, it's so tough for you guys too, because here comes Will Ryan and like he's got to basically rebuild a system that Darner, left with. You guys are, I don't know what your actual average was, but I'm just going to hyperbolize here. You guys are probably averaging like 20 seconds of possession or something, something in that range, and not really running a bunch of size out there. You have Manny Patterson who transfers. And so Will Ryan's got to come in and just kind of like rework a system and fill in a bunch of players. It's kind of showing that it's coming back to get you guys. You did mention someone's name though, Jim, and I wanted to bring him up specifically and then ask you a little bit about his supporting cast. So I don't know if you're aware of this, but Norse Report, we do Horizon League Player of the Year projections, and we try to get anywhere between 5 and 10, depending on how strong the metric is. It's been really tough this year because there's been so much volatility, and it's our metric we realized was a little messed up this year. We had Grant Basili in like the top 5, and it's like we probably shouldn't have him in the top 5 because he's not going to win it over Loudon Love unless Loudon Love gets hurt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we retweaked it this week, and it hasn't officially dropped yet, but I will tell you that Amari Davis is currently ranked 8th in our Horizon League Player of the Year rankings, putting him at about a second teamer. What are your thoughts on that specifically? But then also, what can you tell me about how Amari's been this year? He was freshman of the year last year, absolute superstar in the making. Do you think that's a fair assessment? Do you want to see him higher? And then also tell me a little bit about supporting cast as well.
Yeah, I would have Amari higher, but not a ton higher. I mean, when you look at player of the year things, I mean, winning is a big thing too, and the team doesn't win enough for him to be significantly higher than that. But I do think if you're just saying, hey, I'm drafting the best players in the league, I'm gonna pick, he's a top 5 pick probably. Things that have been really good for Amari Davis this year, his free throw shooting has improved. He gets to the line a ton. So that part of his game did not regress at all in terms of being able to get to the hoop. He's super crafty. He's super slippery and slick. I mean, he isn't just a guy that is going to get buckets. His mid-range game is still pretty solid. I mean, he was just killing it last year with, he'd come off these curls on the baseline and different places that they could get him, 15 feet out. Coach Garner was a kind of coach. I remember talking to him just one time real briefly about it, but he didn't care about analytics. He didn't care that the analytics, hated the 15-foot jumper. He looked at that and said, Amari can make that 55% of the time, so I'm going to have him take that. Take that shot, and he can make it.
Brady Labor, who's one of our color commentators, said it on the women's broadcast this weekend. He does all the men's, but their men were out of town, so he did women this week. He said the analytics, sabermetrics, they'll tell you that 3 is better than 2. He's right, but 2 is better than 0. And so it's a good point. It's a good point by Brady.
Yeah. And so Amari's been really good that way. One of the things that Amari's done a really great job of last year, his defense, he was kind of lost on defense. Just learning on the job. Now Green Bay's defense is not good. Statistically is not good. However, they are trying to implement a totally different system. And Amari is tending to guard the best guard on the other team. And so, you think about what the best players do in basketball.
Yeah.
Is your best player hiding on the worst player on defense so he can rest up for offense? That is not Amari. Amari is going to have Warwick or Faulkner, and he is going to guard them, hard. He has gotten significantly better there, and he is shooting 3-pointers now. He's made a bunch, but he is really streaky. I mean, if you look at it, it'll be 3 for 5 and then 0 for 6. And then, 2 for 4 and 0 for 5. It is really streaky. And so he has gotten better in that regard. He looks comfortable doing it. But by the same token, that's still not his game. He's only 31% overall in the season and probably 25%, in Horizon League play. If you take out the first 2 games against UWM, he was like 6 for 9. If you take that out, he's like maybe 25% guy. So, but he's really good. And he doesn't get the press around the league this year because, when you're a freshman, and this is not a freshman league, but when you're a freshman, you win the award all the time. Like Works winning the award, every week, you get all that press. But if you're not then at that next level, or your team isn't at that next level where you're player of the week all the time, you're just kind of stuck until the end of the season when you pop up on the second team all conference team.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say to you is our metric absolutely takes into account, because we're not stupid. We know how this works. Our metric absolutely takes into account year and winning percentage. So basically what we did is we took the last like 10, 15 players of the year and built out a statistical profile of what that person looks like. And we did factor in winning percentage. They're not giving it to the last place team, the guy on the last place team, whatever. So just so you feel a little bit better, Amari Davis is one of 3 sophomores in the top 10 right now. And it's Tanner Holden and Grant Basili are the other 2, which make a lot of sense. So he's in esteemed company there. So just so you kind of knew about that. Well, Hey, look, I did want to ask you too. When we came into the league, obviously, well, I shouldn't say when we came into the league, we had Dave Beasled our first year, but the second year we were in the league, we brought in John Brannon, and he brought this style of basketball called 94 feet both ways. We're going to get up, we're going to run, we're going to score in the 80s. We might give up some points, but our defense will still be good. It's just going to give up a lot of points because our style of play. And what we were told is, well, you guys know about Green Bay, right? That's what we can expect. We're going to play a lot like them, probably not as all in as they are in terms of up and down, but we're going to be a lot like that. Pump the brakes on this. You got Will Ryan in now. What is his philosophy? Is it a lot like his dad's? Is it different? And then, of course, for the fans who don't know, if it is like his dad's, how?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's the polar on offense. It is the polar opposite of what you're used to seeing for Green Bay. In the past, if you saw Link Darner go like this on the sideline, that meant 5-out motion offense. And that was basically, somebody's going to go one-on-one and take a tough shot. But he had guys that could make those tough shots. But if you love pure basketball, that was not your game watching, Jake McLeod or Sandy Cohen or somebody just take their guy, 2-dribble pull up and bury a jumper or not. Yeah. So Will Ryan is way different in that, they're going to have some of the things that you have seen Bo Ryan do. Like, as an example, an action that you will see a lot of more than likely. And now again, against the zone defense, maybe you won't see as much, but there's a ton of UCLA action in their offense to try to get their guards posted. So, PJ Pipes, Lucas Stever, you'll see those guys posted up a tremendous amount on the right block off of a UCLA cut. You will see them pass multiple times. You will not see somebody take a step back jumper. You will not see a, pump fake between the legs, any of the stuff that, makes it on the ESPN Sports Center top 10. You see somebody do that, you will also see that player finding a seat somewhere on their bench on the next dead ball.
Funny. So that's like NKU's offense. So
yeah, so it is totally different. It is, you will not see them get the ball and run it up. Like one of the things that Coach Darner was really great at, I mean, on a free throw miss or a free throw make, they would be scoring in 4 seconds on an inbound pass. The number of times that they did that was just insane because the system was set up to do that. Mm-hmm. You will see them walk the ball up the court almost every possession, which would be similar to Wisconsin. Although they do opportunistically, if they've got numbers, if they've got somebody on a bust out, they're looking ahead for that. Yeah. But what they're not going to do is run into the first 2-point shot or 3-point shot that's available. Like, they're waiting for the best shot, whether that's at the 5 seconds in, 15 seconds in, or 5 seconds left on the clock, but they are not going to take bad shots.
Yeah. It's almost like watching, I don't know if you ever coached basketball or played at any level or whatever, but it's almost like when you were watching them last year, it was almost like they were running like a 3-on-2 continuous drill, like for their offense. Yeah. Like it was literally just, shot goes up, it gets missed. You have 7 seconds or less to score basically. And there is no such thing as a secondary break. So it's not, get down, you get stopped, and then you have your secondary action before you get into your set. It was shots going up, like regardless. Yep. So I'm sure as a fan, it's a lot more, and a fan of the game, it's a lot more pleasurable to watch. And you can probably see like, hey, we're young. It's a weird year. People haven't gotten to learn yet. There's probably more of it probably feels like there's more of a future because honestly, it's hard to be successful at a gimmick, like long-term,
Yeah. I wouldn't describe the old stuff as a gimmick, but what it required was really high level players. And so Coach Darner, brought in a lot of JUCO guys that could come in and, pop a J right away. And so, this is just different. And when you watch it, it is really pretty to watch on offense. They're working the ball, they're, post touching, they're going side to side. They are doing the things that, you're taught to do when you learn how to play basketball. So, they protect the ball pretty well. They don't turn it over a lot. Pressure defense doesn't really, force a lot of problems for them. So that's an interesting kind of thing with the NKU is if they're bringing the press or, picking up 3/4 quarter, whatever, we're probably not going to turn the ball over a ton against that. And so this is just value the possession, get the ball where you can, to guys where they can score and, let the cards fall where they may after that.
Yeah, like Moneyball. Like, don't be afraid to take a walk. Kind of like play smart. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, You know, we were talking off the recording on our little pre-call we were doing, and you had mentioned that you got a chance to see some NKU games this year, and I know you probably have some thoughts on the Norse. I'm happy to hear what those are and refute some of them. But you had mentioned one thing specifically that I think I'm going to have something to say about. Why don't you tell the fans what it is that really grinds your gears about the Norse?
Well, yeah, when I look at the Norse play, it's kind of one of those things. Do you care about results or do you care about how you got there and our style points? Because I've seen Bryson Langdon clear out and go for a game winner. I've seen Marquez Warwick go for a game winner in isolation. I think I've seen Trayvon Faulkner either go for a game winner or get in the spot to go for it. I don't remember if he got the hoop or not, but I see them running like that Iverson cut. They bring the two guys over the top of the forward to get him in space and let them operate one-on-one. And having watched a lot of that for the last 5 years, that is hit or miss. You really have to have some high-level guys to be able to, score in that way. And so when I watch NKU play, I see them taking a lot of tough one-on-one shots, and it grinds my gears because they're winning, doing it. That's what grinds my gears.
So
it shouldn't be winning with that stuff.
I'll tell you this. That was not so much our philosophy last year. I was on your podcast last year, and you guys were kind of asking me like, what the hell is this team? I can't make any sense of it. And I was like, honestly, and Horn said this last year, we have to change every 2 weeks who we are because our lineup changes. Like Jalen Tate got hurt last year. Dantez Walton got hurt last year. Jalen Tate came back last year. Dantez Walton came back. So it was just a different team every year, or I mean, every other week. And this year it's interesting because there has been a little bit more consistency in terms of like philosophy, I think, but not so much in production. And I think a lot of that is due to Trayvon Faulkner's never been better than a fourth option in this offense. Mm-hmm. Adrian Nelson's never been a starter, a consistent starter. Bryson Langdon was a starter last year, but he's being asked to do a lot more. Last year, he was asked to don't turn the ball over and make good passes to get assists. Like he led the league in assist turnover ratio.
Threes.
And hit standstill threes, which he delivered half the time on. So, it was hit or miss for him too. But this year you have these players that are getting thrust into roles that they're not really used to. And what I'll tell you is we do run the Iverson cuts or screens a lot, but we have two guys in Faulkner and Warwick that are probably two of the best in the league in guard isolation. I mean, we have really been playing through Trayvon Faulkner in isolation. And I'm going to tell you right now, here's two reasons why I know it's working. His assist numbers are up higher than they've ever been in his career, and teams are running double teams at him. And that's partly because, well, they're running double teams at him in isolation because he's so freaking good in isolation. And his assist numbers are up because he's finding the right guy. Even if it's across the court in the other corner, he's delivering a pass like on point to a wide open 3-point shooter. And so, and Warwick, while young, is one of the best freshmen, like besides Amari Davis. I mean, he's right. They're so similar in the way that they could score the basketball. Warwick obviously stepping out, shooting a little bit more threes than last year for Davis. But And then real quick, the screen and roll stuff. You'll see a lot of screen and roll with specifically with Nelson and Langdon. You'll obviously see it with other people too, but that's where it's most effective. Those two, they have a really good camaraderie.
As you think about the game, Kyle, that's going to be a really big play then, because one of the biggest weaknesses for Green Bay this year, defensively, their on-ball screen, how they defend the on-ball screen. I mean, they work at it tirelessly. Yeah. But their system, you think about the different ways that you see people defend, the on-ball screen. You see, Texas Tech and Baylor are really, great examples of this. NKU under Brandon, icing every ball screen, sending the ball to the baseline. And Green Bay's not doing that. Think about the NBA. The Bucks. A lot of teams play drop coverage in the NBA. The Bucks or Green Bay's not doing any of that. They're not running that guy hard out there and making the making the ball handler reverse course and go the opposite direction. They are not doing any of that. They are just kind of bringing their big guy up, and so that they can get their guard over the top of the screen and recover back. And then they get beat on the roll so many times. The help isn't where it's supposed to be. I mean, it's just been a gigantic mess for them against a couple of teams this year. And they have guys that are getting better at it. But if that's the main plan for you guys, you just get ready for a field day, because you just can't stop it.
I say that, but I have to make the assumption that Will Ryan's a good coach and can watch film and can make adjustments. And I'm going to tell you right now, Adrian Nelson, as I love the kid so much, and he's number one in the league in rebound and total rebound percentage. So like, I mean, he's up there in so many statistical categories, having himself a breakout year. Possibly, I just wrote an article today, actually, just posted. He's making a play for third team Horizon League based on if they classify him as a forward. And, you know, in my mind, he's up against Oladapo and Goss. But the point I'm making is one thing he can't do is step out and hit threes. And so, you know, I know you said it's against philosophy here, but if Green Bay's smart, they'll run their guards over all those screens and sag their big guy back with a foot near the paint, you know, and let Nelson pop if he wants to, but like have that guy there primarily probably closer to the paint, because we're a lot of times running ball screens for Warwick. And if we do run ball screens for Warwick and Faulkner, it's off to the right-hand side of the court so they can go left. And so, yeah, that's how I would defend it, because those two are also very lethal in the mid-range. So you do want to have your big man there for help a little bit, but
yeah, you'll see, you know, the Green Bay big man is usually coming up almost parallel to the screener. And so that's where they're susceptible. They're not sitting back waiting, you know, a foot back. Like it's just different. And so I share this as like, it has been a major problem. And so teams just attack that at them. And it's not that Coach Ryan doesn't know make adjustments. He's a great coach. He's going to be very successful, but he's playing, you know, of his 6 forwards that he has to play, he is playing a redshirt freshman, a walk-on freshman. He's playing a junior college guy that had no other D1 offers. He's playing a D2 guy that was with them at Wheeling. He's playing a true freshman. I mean, and then another kid that he got late in June. So he doesn't have anybody that, you know, is like the captain of that defense and seeing it all and calling it all out and just, you know, controlling the situation.
Right.
But the reason he doesn't deviate from it, in my opinion, is this is about what are you going to do? Not what are you doing, but what are you going to do? What are you going to hang your hat on? If you're Jerry Slocum from Youngstown back in the day, you throw some gimmick out there every game that wasn't really what you did and what you believed in, and you just hope to win, and you wouldn't do it. The best coaches have a system, they have a belief.
Yeah, absolutely.
And even though it annihilates our defense is currently rated in like the KenPom. I believe it's number 330 in KenPom right now, which is bad because there's only 347 active teams in D1.
Yeah.
So it's bad.
Hey, wait, you can just say there's 353. It's okay. Nobody knows. You increase that percentage a little bit. No, it's funny. I say the same thing. All of our fans get so mad because they're fan. I mean, I'm a fan too, but like, you know, they don't do a recorded show. Like they don't, you know, invest the time and energy into like watching film and studying the team. I try to tell them all the time, like that's what Horn's doing. Like, you know, teams hit threes against Syracuse. You don't hear anybody saying, well, why doesn't Boeheim just go man to man? Like they don't do that. That's not the thing. Yeah. The thing is like, you know, we're going to do what we do better than you do what you do. And we're going to be that way every night. And that's how Horn is with the matchup zone. You rarely, in 2 years, I haven't seen him go man for more than, you know, 10% of the possessions in a game. So,
you know, Kyle, what's interesting to me about the zone this year for you guys, I think it's gotten better as the season's gone on, but like early in the year, I didn't think that NKU played at the intensity level in that zone that they did last year. And they had guys flying around all over the place, you know, deflecting passes, you know, that was part of the offense, turning defense into offense.
Well, sorry, can I interrupt real quick?
Yeah.
To make the point that you're making, like when I went on your show last year, you guys asked me about the Wright State game when we lost by 32. And I told you that Darren Horn has said multiple times, and it's true, the film bears it out, that when our guards play aggressive, get up in the other guards, it gets into passing lanes, converts on steals, and gets us easy points. B, it mitigates our lack of size. And like, that's one thing that we really struggle with. I know Nelson's been great. He's 6'7". He's our center. You know, we have to have our guards playing well. And last year we had Jalen Tate, you know, 6'6" point guard, and Tyler Sharp, who was a 6'0" bulldog, but top 20 I think he was number 14 for his career in 3 seasons by the time he graduated in steals. So we don't have that this year, but I'll let you finish your point. I just wanted to throw that in there real quick.
Yeah, no. And so what I think is an opportunity for Green Bay, even though I think the NKU zone has gotten a lot better. I think you guys played Tennessee Tech earlier in the season,
Yeah.
or Tennessee State. Well, I can't remember which one you played, but
Tech, I believe. Gold and purple. I think it was Tech.
Yeah, Tennessee Tech, the purple uniforms. And
Yeah.
like that was a game that stood out to me. They had they got to the baseline anytime they wanted. They got the ball at the free throw line and then turned and then dribbled in, shot, or passed it to the baseline. And Green Bay's going to run the same thing against a lot of zones. You're going to see them because they're playing a 3-guard, 2-forward lineup. So it's really against the zone. They're going to get one big guy flashing up to the free throw line and one other guy in the opposite corner. And that has worked against NKU if you can get the ball to the free throw line.
And that's the best reason. That's why I tell people that like, you can't think of our matchup zone as a 2-3 zone because it's a matchup zone. So like someone flashes to the middle of the paint, there's going to be someone guarding that. It's not like a 2-3 zone where there's these like innate pockets all the time. Like you still have to move the ball. And honestly, a big reason why you run a matchup zone is because it's so confusing for the offense. It plays like a man, but it's still a zone. And actually, Darren Horn will tell you it's not a zone at all, but it's a man where they switch a lot. But no, it's a matchup zone. Or as the Cleveland State guys will call it, an amoeba zone. Jim, before we wrap this up, I did want to ask. I asked John Parker from the Horizon Roundtable when we covered Milwaukee last week. For our fans who haven't gotten a chance to see Green Bay this year, point me in the direction. What are a couple of games that we should watch going into the weekend, just to get a game where we should really get it's kind of the best representation of who Green Bay is as a team, and then B, give me a game that was like, it might not even be a good game. Maybe just like the most fun game of the season. I'm thinking probably that Oakland game, but.
Well, I think it was the second Purdue-Fort Wayne game. They won pretty easily in terms of controlled the game the whole way. The second IUPUI game, they won pretty easily. I mean, it got tight at the end, but they were up 25 points at one point. So those are games where things were clicking for them. And then, in terms of like a game to watch, maybe one of the Cleveland State games, because, Cleveland State plays feisty defense. Cleveland State is not winning with talent. They are winning with sheer willpower and then enough talent. But I think, that there's a team that I'd look at and say, that's a team that NKU would maybe want to, emulate their defense on a little bit, in terms of just how hard it is to play against them. So like, see what Green Bay did well in those games. Like they had Cleveland State on the ropes at different points in time. And then they also had points where they just totally, tripped all over their own feet and looked terrible. So that'd be the kind of game where, you could compare how you guys played against Cleveland State and see how Green Bay played and get a good feel for that. But the best ones in terms of, where we look good, some of the Oakland games, but the second Purdue-Fort Wayne and the second IUPUI game for sure.
Okay, sweet. I'll make sure that I tell people about those. And yeah, I mean, Cleveland State, they're a whole nother animal. I'm on the one hand, like I don't have any resentment towards them at all. I love Dennis Gates. He's somebody that we were actually looking, well, not officially, but like I had heard that we were giving him a glance when we were going to hire Horn, and I was in love with the guy. Like I think he's awesome, and it's no surprise to me at all that he's doing what he's doing. And it's crazy because, like you said, they have nobody in our top 10. None of their players make our metric. We had Torrey Patton snuck in 1 week. He snuck into our top 10 metric. They might not have a first, second, or third teamer this year, and they're the best team in the conference. And that's all coaching.
I'd say you look at a guy like Gomillion, whose biggest skill I can tell is shoot it and then go get his own rebound and put it back in when you're not expecting to do it. But they all do it, and it's an amazing thing to watch, and I'm happy that they're winning. Kyle, one thing I want to draw a little attention to though for you guys. If you don't mind. So I was looking at a couple of stats, and in particular, one of the things I want to think about rebounding. NKU is especially with Adrian Nelson, he gets so many offensive rebounds. And Adrian Nelson spends a lot of time with his back to the baseline, just dumping passes and collecting garbage and putting it back in. And that is a skill. That is a really big skill because there's not a lot of guys able to do that. But I don't see NKU as being a really good defensive rebounding team. Other teams seem to get a lot of offensive rebounds against them. Green Bay has a guy that is coming on strong. His name is Manny Ansong. And Manny is a 6'4", 195-pound forward,
Okay.
but he is
Oh,
a freak
wow.
athlete. A lot of highlight dunks, in-game dunks. He's only been eligible since the Wright State Series, wasn't playing a lot. He's coming on strong now. He's kind of finding his way. He was with Will Ryan at Wheeling, but I share that as his biggest skill is weak side rebounding. And while he's only 6'4", 195, he is able to power up and finish right at the hoop when he gets one of those rebounds. And
Yeah.
so I think that there's a really good, something to watch for this game if you're an NKU fan is, can you keep Manny Ansong off the glass? Because he's going to get a lot of the Adrian Nelson type points, even though he's not as big and strong as Adrian Nelson. He's going to get that.
Yep. So
Play.
it's a 2-game series. It sounds like it's going to come down to Adam Alita, he plays our offside on the baseline typically. He's like him and it's usually him and like another guard, maybe Faulkner, maybe usually Warwick's up top. So it's usually Faulkner and Alita with the starting group that's down on the baseline, checking out those weak side guards. And Adam Alita, man, he is an anomaly. He's a senior, but like he's the guy who he'll go 0 for 10 on 3 one game, but then he'll go 6 for 10 the next game. It's just, and he's the same way on defense too. So I'm very nervous to hear you say that.
Yeah. And so we have another guy, Japana Kellogg, 6'8", 190. He's only averaging 4 and 3 on the season, but he has 49 rebounds total, and 25 of them are offensive. So he's another guy that kind of long and lanky and gets his hands on balls. And now the last couple of games, he's been able to kind of duck ins and dives and loose balls.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is what Green Bay has been missing. And you're starting to see a couple of guys be able to do that. Like, because everybody thinks with a big guy, you got to put him in the post, back to the basket, 2 power dribbles, and go up over your shoulder. And that's part of the game too, but that's hard to find at the Horizon League level. But finding these kind of guys that are just lanky and getting their hands on balls and cleaning up messes. And we've got 2 guys that are kind of in that groove right now against what I think is an opportunity with NKU is a good rebounding team overall. But statistically, at least what I saw was that they weren't, teams were able to offensive rebound against them a little bit. So I want to give that as like a little shout out for something to watch within the game that people might not be going into going, Japana Kellogg and Manny Ansong are keys to this, but they very well could be.
Yeah, true. And the other thing too is like our offensive or our team's offensive rebounding numbers against us probably aren't even as high as they will be by the end of the year, because as you're stating, Green Bay seems to be coming on really strong with offensive rebounding, and then we haven't played Wright State yet. So that's going to be a whole nother, that's going to be a whole nother problem in itself. The good news for NKU fans, and this is something for you, Jim, is we have a walk-on 7'1" freshman named Noah Hoopman, who's like, I mean, he runs like Lurch, like he just shuffle. He runs like the stick man in Bug's Life or whatever. Like he just doesn't move, but he's been coming on really strong. And I know that Horn has never seen him as a walk-on. He's seen him as like a project player, but I'm still kind of wondering why he's a walk-on in the first place, because like if it has something to do with, I don't know. He went to a private school here in Northern Kentucky. So I don't know. There's a lot of, go ahead.
Honestly, it's funny you bring it up because, I watch a ton of teams around the league. I try to see as much as I can, like any, the hardcore fans do. And I was actually super impressed with Noah and his game and like where he was at. But when I saw him as a walk-on, I think of it as like a business decision. Don't hand out value when you don't have to. Like if you don't have to give the guy a scholarship to get there, then don't do it. Like he will get a scholarship when it's time. But if it's just that's what when I saw him play, I was like,
it's so weird
because I thought.
Yeah, no, that's fair. But to the opposite point, we have 2 scholarships left on this roster. Like we still have, but if we give it to him, then like that loses leverage. Like basically it's a 4-year contract. I mean, scholarships aren't, I know they're not super fluid. Like I know there's some questions on whether or not people can lose theirs or whatever, but like, it's not just like you can say, oh, you're not good enough anymore, we're taking that back now. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so, that's a really good point. If you don't have to give it to him, and we didn't have to, don't do it.
Plus mid-season, think of the transfer world that we live in today, the portal, the possible immediate eligibility. Like you don't know who's going to come available. You don't know who might be interested in coming to NKU. You don't know that Will Baker is going to go to Nevada, and maybe, who knows if Darren Horn would have got a shot at. I'm
No,
not saying
I
Will Baker
never, no. I never thought of it that way. I seriously didn't. Like, if you're a player who's transferring from a big time school because you're not playing a lot, and there are some that have already entered the portal, why not? If you can become eligible, why not just take the first school that'll put you on their roster right now, like NKU could. I mean, it's kind of like keeping leverage open as a NBA team and not using all your cap. Like, there's certain limits you have to use, but why not keep yourself fluid and flexible?
give yourself
So
flexibility, especially if you didn't have to give him the scholarship to get him.
yeah, that's a good point.
That's just basic. That's how I felt. But he is, to me, a scholarship worthy project in terms of,
Yes,
I didn't think he was a total stiff. I actually watched him play. I thought, there's a guy that 2 or 3 years down the road we're probably looking at going, how in the hell did they get Noah Hoopman?
dude. And we're gonna need him too, because like I said on our we do a show called Last Call where we kind of just wrap up the previous week. A couple Norse Report guys. I said this on the Last Call show. When a team's got Grant Basile and a team's got Loudon Love, those guys are tanks. And like, the only way to beat a tank is by having, being another tank, or having a really tall wall that they can't drive over or through. Like, you know what I mean? And so, or at least if they're going to drive through, it's going to, take some time. So that's kind of like our thing. We need Noah Hoopman to develop a little bit, because Loudon Love might be gone after this year, maybe, but Grant Basile ain't going anywhere. So
hey, if Loudon Love is back next year, we can officially start calling him the doctor. 6 years in college, like that's. I think there's a Tommy Boy line in there. A lot of people go to school for 6 years. So
could you blame him though? Seriously, like, it's got to be so much fun just being him. Like, having nobody in the league that can stop you when you are on. And it's just, I don't know. And I think
if they go to the tournament and win a game, I think that's a good time to call it. And quite frankly, they're in a really good position, in terms of their net rating, to get a seed line that has the Horizon in a spot to win a game for the first time in a long time. Like, I don't have anything against Cleveland State, but I want Wright State to make the tournament if it's not Green Bay, because they're going to get the highest seed and the best possibility to win a game. And, one of the things that I'm really a big fan of, and you kind of alluded to it before with Oakland and their scheduling, like the league, something that stood out to me about the league is the league's metrics haven't been very good of late. But so much of that is just baked into bad scheduling. Green Bay playing 5 bye games, Oakland playing 3 or 4 bye games. All these things. One of the things that stood out to me about, if you look at net, if you look at the league ranking, Robert Morris and Fort Wayne come into the league from what were perceived to be maybe equal or slightly below Horizon League. Those teams are not even close to where the rest of the Horizon League is at this point in time. And that's Robert Morris with one of the probably 5 best individual players in the league on their team.
He's number 5 in our rankings this year, or this week.
And I share that with you, Kyle, because, when I look at that, so what has the Horizon League done to put themselves in a spot where it seems like it's really in a worse spot? It's this mentality of all that matters is 2 days in Indianapolis, and we don't care about the rest of the season. And that kills fan engagement, and that kills momentum. Like, the season is about what did Wright State do? They play games they could win, and then they kick the crap out of the teams that they play, and then they're ranked 56th in the net. Like, that's what more teams need to be doing, in my opinion, so that they come in looking pretty good. Like, Oakland came into the KenPom to start the conference at like 290 because they lost 7 games pretty badly, and then they get in, the regular season. They're now 8-8, I think, in conference play, and they've increased their KenPom by like 70 spots. Because KenPom isn't a measure of winning; it's a measure of efficiency. But show me an inefficient team that wins. So. It is it doesn't happen often. It's about regression to the mean. I mean,
also the KenPom number 1 team probably doesn't win every year either, because there's meet me somewhere in the middle, but you obviously want to be higher on the efficiency ratings because you have a better chance, excuse me.
And the margins are that's one of the things that if you really dig into the numbers in any advanced metric, the difference between number 200 and 300 is razor thin. Yeah. So you have to do things, but as a league, we get more teams pushing into that top 200. Like right now, we only have 3 teams in the top 200, I believe, but we don't have as many bottom dwellers. We don't have 5 teams in the bottom 3 below 300 anymore, and the overall metrics are better. And that's partially because the scheduling was smarter because of COVID this year. You played local teams that you could kind of win against, and lo and behold, we did better.
Yeah, I agree, and that's kind of. Go ahead.
Oh,
Sorry.
I was gonna say I share this because with that type of philosophy and winning and raising the bar and starting to care about the whole season, and there is no lost season, and everybody thinking that way, getting all 12 teams to think that way, that's where you start going down the path of how do you get back to the 2-bid league? How do you get to winning a tournament game? Even if you only get one bid, how do you make sure that one bid is in position to win a tournament game? And so Wright State right now has done the work to be in position to win a tournament game, and they have two big centers that actually give them a chance against a high major. I'm not saying they'll win, but
I
at
know, I
least
know, I know. But here's my fear, and this is where my bias comes in. If I was a true Horizon League guy, I'd be all about it. But where my bias comes in is I don't want Wright State doing too damn good, because then they're going to start freaking dominating. Like, they're going to be, not that they haven't already, but they're going to be the team that's getting everybody in recruiting. They're going to be the team that long-term is here to stay and all that kind of stuff. And like, I know a lot can play out. It's a Horizon League. So you got guys who are going to transfer. Nagy's going to leave. So I don't know.
and there's something I'll say about this is something that where when I pick on NKU a little bit on Twitter sometimes with the Valhalla guys, we've gotten into it in the past, and
Yeah.
one of the things that is really important that I think is lost in all this, Green Bay and Wright State have in the last 25 years, they have the two best programs in the Horizon League by far.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you look at everybody else has bottomed out, crapped out, been at points in time an anchor. And the only two teams that you'd say have not done that since 1995 are Wright State and Green Bay. And so something that's interesting about like all the, as I see games from with my Green Bay blinders on, 5 years ago when you guys were coming into the league, this was Valparaiso and Green Bay's league. It happens to be NKU and Wright State's league right now. And now maybe Cleveland State, who is nowhere. This is so fluid. All this stuff is fluid. And so it is really, just like I said about building your system within a coach ingraining their system, a program with these schools, these athletic directors, the marketing people, the fundraising people have to believe that this can be something bigger and better than what it is, and then act like that. And, and start carrying ourselves in the way that a legitimate league and legitimate teams will do. And so, I just bring this up as like Green Bay is down this year, so everybody get your licks on when you can, but I feel we're one of the few programs in the league that actually carries ourselves in a way that we're trying to win and be good.
No, for sure. And you guys are set up to like, I mean, you guys fired a guy who made it to the top 4 in the tournament last year. Like, so, I mean, teams, on the flip side, you have Detroit Mercy, who's kept Mike Davis every single year, can do no wrong, basically. And so, yeah, I mean, that I think, yeah, there's a balance there. And I don't know how the Horizon League is perceived here in Highland Heights. I personally am all about it until we can get to a position where we're going to a much, much larger conference. But I don't see that happening for a while. And I think it's time, like people gotta, like people were talking about when Eastern Kentucky bolted for the A-Sun and a couple of the other teams bolted for the A-Sun. They were like, hey, the OVC's got some open spots now. Do you think NKU is going to go there? Because, well, there's a backstory there. When we were first looking to go D2 or D1, the OVC was our destination. And we got blackballed by those 3 schools in Kentucky, basically voted yes to let us in, but they told everyone else to vote no, so that like they weren't the one, like, you know what I mean? So on record, like it's a political move. On record, they voted yes. And they're just like, hey, like we said yes, but anyway. So like everyone's like, hey, like the OVC, we've shown interest. Do you think we're going to go there? And I'm like, guys, tell me one area that the OVC is like substantially better than the Horizon League. Like if you want to split hairs,
every game.
Sorry?
You can take a bus to every game. That's it.
Okay. On the flip side of that, think of the media markets that we get with the Horizon League. And I get it. I get it. The media markets don't matter as much now that like TV is not a big thing, but you're still getting coverage in, Cleveland's like press. You're still getting coverage in Green Bay's press. You're still getting coverage in Milwaukee's press. Like these are big, big media markets. Why do we not stay there?
No, I'm Kyle. I'm totally with you. I was just kidding.
And recruiting. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but like that would be the only possible thing that somebody could look at and say that's an advantage. I mean, that's cost savings. And when you're looking at something, well, how can we save money? You're already looking at it from the wrong end of the lens.
Exactly. That's what I was gonna say. That's a fan thing. That's where fans are like, well, we can drive to every game. Okay. You know who doesn't want to drive to every game? Players. We just we just chartered our whole team to freaking Milwaukee. Like, I'm pretty sure they probably like that a little bit. So Yeah. Like unless big thing for us is like, I know the NKU's got their blinders on. They really are interested in like the A10 or, one of those, but like, we're so far away from that. Like we gotta consistently recruit, 3-star or two, 3 stars. Well, really 3 stars have to make up a lot of our roster to even have a chance in the A10. And we really got to like win over the next 10 years. We probably got to win like 3 or 4 more conference titles. So
like, as you think about NKU, like NKU has the facilities, they're in the right media market. They're in the right market just as a perspective of basketball is important. Compared to like in Wisconsin, people care about football, number one, basketball, maybe second or third. They're in the right market that way. But when I think of NKU, the things that I see, you want to go to the A10, get out your checkbook because you're about $1.5 million a year behind on spending compared to the rest of the A10. Just as a starting point, that matters because of things like chartering and where you stay and your recruiting budget and all of those things. But what will help, and I know this is going to hurt your ears, Kyle, so listen, maybe take your earpods out when I say this, but somebody has to be the bar that raises up everybody else. And if Wright State can start that in motion, because I've been around this for 25 years, and when it was Butler, other teams were striving to get to that level. And then when they got a win over that team, it helped them. Like getting a win over Wright State 2 years ago or whatever, that was cool for the Horizon League fans, but the rest of the world didn't care. That happened in almost like its own little echo chamber. You need to get some bar.
I remember watching. I remember watching when I was living in Texas still. Actually, it might have been Indiana at that point, but regardless, I was not a Horizon League fan. I was still in high school, hadn't even gone to NKU yet. I remember watching on national TV on ESPN broadcast, watching Butler versus UMGB. And I was like, who the hell is UWGB? I was like, who the hell is UWGB? Or who the hell is like UWM? Like, who are these freaking schools that are playing? And so I would look you guys up, and then I'd play with you guys on NCAA 2007 so I could beat Butler. So yeah, that kind of stuff helps. I agree with you.
It is that. So somebody has to set that bar. And if it's Wright State, the thing is, like this idea that fans have about leaving the Horizon League. I know we're way off on a tangent.
Yeah, my bad. We're going to definitely split this into 2 episodes, by the way.
So in 25 years of Horizon League, since the private schools started leaving, like, the Xaviers and Duquesnes and Evansvilles and all those, only one public school has left the Horizon League in 25 years. And that was Northern Illinois, because they went to play football in the MAC. So people don't understand, like, the hurdle that, we're up against here to get to, for somebody to say, oh, let's get out of the league. You have to do so much more. You have to do everything on point better than what you're doing it today. And so I think NKU can get there. I think Wright State can get there. I think there's a handful of teams that can get there, but somebody just has to consistently string the stuff together.
Yeah. What's going to kill us, like you said, is what's going to kill us, to your point, is not the infrastructure. I don't mean that in terms of like physical, tangible infrastructure. I mean infrastructure in terms of like legacy, history, not having the donor base because we've only been around since 1968. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of structural things at play here that are going to hurt us. We don't have, like I said, we don't have the donors that A10 schools are going to have. You don't, and you can make up for like a shortfall in spending on buy games at this level. But if you go to the A10, you are the buy game. Like you're the one paying teams to come play you in a lot of cases. So that's a really good point too.
And Kyle, think about that from the business side of that. So if you play a buy game today, you get $100,000. So, and let's say Green Bay, we have to play 3 a year. So we stop playing buy games. We need to replace that $300,000. Plus we need to buy 3 other games. So it's like a $500,000 to $600,000 swing to get out of that world. But unless you're thinking about it and thinking it's a problem, you're never going to solve it. And so Wright State is thinking about that. Show me the buy games that they play. They play like maybe once in a great while. They'll play a Clemson or a Georgia Tech or somebody they can beat. But they're not out there getting their butt kicked for a Tech. And they're still spending the most amount in the league. From what I can tell, the numbers I see, they're spending $3 million a year. So, they're, I think, doing the right things. We'll see if it pays off in the end. But for this, I'm going to give I know you want to wrap this up. And so I want to give a little prediction for.
I said we weren't going to get into predictions. I don't want to go on the record. No, it's okay. Go for it.
I feel like two really close games. Like NKU is, on a hot streak. I think you guys won 6 in a row, sitting at 9-5 record wise.
Yep, in
Green Bay,
conference, yeah.
this is a really big weekend though, because for you guys at 9-5, getting 1 or 2 wins here really sets you up to be a top 4 for sure.
Yeah.
And for a program like Green Bay, we're at 6-10, but a sweep here puts us at 8-10 and has you guys going to Wright State, to end the season. And all of a sudden now the dynamics of the league can really flip here. But when I see all the things on paper, I really just see two fairly closer to evenly matched teams than I think that the outsider is going to think based on where the record, one team's 9-5 and one team's 6-10. But statistically, they score about the same number of points. They shoot about the same percentage. They give up, about the same percentage. Green Bay's a little worse defensive field goal percentage.
Yeah.
3-point field goals are better, but your defense is a little bit better. Free throw shooting, we're really good. But you're a better rebounding team. But your weakness in rebounding is our strength with offensive rebounding.
I know. Go either way.
It's gonna be a fun split category, but I'm expecting 2 really good games. Games that Horizon League fans will say that was fun. That's what I'm hoping. I don't think it's gonna be a bad series. That's one thing that Green Bay hasn't done a lot this year. They haven't got outside their high major games in league play. And I'm expecting a good weekend for both programs. I'm not expecting it's going to be a sweep for either team. I just think it's going to be 2 highly competitive games.
Okay, so give me. Are you thinking 1-1? Are you thinking 2-0 for you guys? Are you thinking 0-2? 1-1.
1-1.
Okay.
2-0 would be fantastic because then we could actually pass you in the standings. Because then we go. See, the thing is, like looking ahead. I know this is what fans do, right? We look ahead. Right. But if we could get a sweep against you, which I don't think we can. Well, I don't know if we can or can't. But if we did get a sweep, now that brings
it's a toss-up,
really close, and that puts us to we're going to a scuffling UIC, and you're going to or you're bringing in Wright State,
best team in the league.
Yeah. And so this is a really big series for both teams, and these are teams that I haven't seen. They didn't fold. Like you guys got swept by IUPUI. What'd you do after that? You won 6 straight games. I think that's what happened.
Yeah, no, it is.
Yeah, and so Green Bay lost to Detroit and came back and swept Purdue Fort Wayne. They lost to Cleveland State, but they came back and played really well against IUPUI. These are 2 teams that aren't giving up on their season, and so I'm expecting a really competitive game. But I mean, a sweep for either one is really, would be monumental for one and catastrophic for the other.
I hate to say it. I have us sweeping you guys only because we have to. Absolutely have to. I don't think we're going to, I'm to be honest with you, but like I'm doing it. I'm saying it as a fan because look, we have to. I will take anything we can do against Wright State positive, but there's no logical way that we should be on the same court as them. I mean, really, and I don't, I hate saying that because I'm going to get yelled at or dragged or whatever, but they're so good and they're just exactly like our kryptonite. I mean, they're huge and there's truly nothing we can do about it. And it's like, if we actually do somehow find a way to mitigate their size somehow, they could still hit threes and they're very talented on the outside as well. So, Matt, go ahead.
I was saying, the thing about Wright State too is that not only are they big, but their big guys are more experienced than you give them credit for because each of them was a redshirt. So you've got a 5th-year Loudon and a 3rd-year Grant Basili.
Yeah.
And then you have Jalen Hall, who missed a year in there, is, I believe in his 4th or 5th year in the program, despite being whatever he's listed at, he's got 1 more year in the program then. He's hurt, but I mean, they're still around, they're still working, they're still absorbing, so that is a old team, even though they've got Calvin's young and one of the other guards is young, but and Tim Finke was a transfer from Grand Canyon. I mean, that's an old team. So there's nothing to say. There's nothing wrong with saying, oh man, we're not as good as them right now. The truth is, most of the teams aren't as good as them right now. Yeah. But 2 years from now, that stuff all changes, and that's why you keep building, you keep working, you keep building it up, and so So I'm not going to drag you for that, even if an NKU fan would. NKU came into this. And they had the 3 really good players that we already talked about. They had the kid that went to Western Carolina that was really good. The kid that went to Western Kentucky that was really good. Like John Brannon came in and brought you guys 5 players that most teams don't have.
Chris Vogt went to Cincinnati is really good.
And Chris Vogt, forgot about. Sorry, yep.
No, it's
NBA
okay.
draft pick Chris Vogt. Yeah.
Yeah,
But he brought in.
That was not. By the way, Norse Report never tweeted that. Just so you know.
I know that is a bane of my existence of tweets. So I hated that one. But I share with you, like, you had a guy who came in and did things that aren't easy to do, especially just picking it up, and he did it all off of excitement and like hard work. He was selling a dream, basically. Because he was selling that to guys that weren't even eligible to go to a tournament at first. I mean, when you think about the first couple of years, you couldn't go to the tournament, and then the year you went to the tournament wasn't because you were the best team. That was fell into it right at the right time.
Thank you very much for that, by the way. You guys were one of the 4 seeds or the 3 seeds that lost ahead of us. Appreciate that. Can't remember who you lost to that year, but
you weren't a bad team either. You just weren't the best team, and you got into it and you built that momentum, and Brandon did the most with it. This is super hard to do at this level, and I don't think you'll see Wright State necessarily sustain it. But right now they're the best team in the league, in my opinion, by far.
I sure hope not. I tell people all the time, momentum is the most important thing when you're trying to build up a mid-major program, and especially consistency over like basically last year was such an important move for us because we got through the Drew McDonald era, right? We got past the Drew McDonald era, and we proved that we could win a championship outside of Drew McDonald, right? And we did it with a new coach. We did it outside of the Brandon era too. And so that was such an important thing for us. But then this year is also a even bigger test in itself, because while we didn't have Drew last year, we still had Dantez Walton, we still had Jalen Tate, still had Tyler Sharp. They were the cultural pillars of the program. And even though we brought a new coach and a staff in, those guys brought the experience, and they didn't know anything other than winning. And so now this year is, and beyond, really. I mean, this year's, it's tough to make it test because it's of COVID and all that. But like the next couple years is so vital. Like we can't finish under 500 in the horizon in the next few years and like continue the momentum and do it as quickly as we have been, in my opinion.
Well, and something else that I think, like I look at your roster as it's constructed right now, and like you get a guy like Marcus Warwick and you think, man, that's the kind of guy you need. And I'm not, I don't mean to diminish junior college guys in other places, but and other types of players. But like when you look at what Brandon did, look at what Wright State is doing. These are programs that are built on 4 or 5 year guys.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that was, to me, refreshing in the coaching change with Green Bay. You will see that the kids that are playing are PJ Pipes, who's been in the program. Mari Davis came out of high school. You're going to see, guys who are, hopefully going to be part of our foundation, so that 2 years from now, we're looking back and going, I remember when Terrence Thompson was 6'8", 220-pound freshman, and I could see some promise, but now I'm like, that dude looks like Xavier Hill Mays. Where did he come from? Like that's that's the kind of thing that you're going to see. And I think that's one of the keys to sustaining success. People say all the time, it's a different world. No, having kids that are in your culture for a long period of time and learn how to win and aren't just here on borrowed time. And that's one thing that I think is interesting, because Horn is not necessarily, in terms of recruiting, he does a little bit of that high school, and he got the international band.
He's mixing. I think he's mixing it up a little bit because he does feel like he needs experience on his roster too. And he's trying to kind of get like more of the sleeper guys. But I will say, like, if you look at who has stepped up and become continuous players in our roster right now, it's all freshmen. And then with the exception of, it's all either freshmen, like that are going to be 4-year freshmen, or NKU guys who have been here. So like Trayvon Faulkner, Adrian Nelson, developed in the system. Or there's only 2 guys that came from JUCO, Alita and Langdon, that are getting a lot of PT and right now. And like those guys have both been here for 2 years now. And like, I'm not against him playing, obviously, Bryson Langdon, because the guy's been unreal.
Langdon's a 3-year JUCO player though, because he had played only 1 year.
He is.
So he's,
you're right.
Kind of along that line of developing your winners. I like Darius Hargan's a guy that's surprised it's not really doing a lot. Carlos Hines is a guy that people thought would come in right away.
Not me. I didn't
either. I thought
want to give it.
he was a huge ball hog. You watch any video on that guy, he's just a one-on-one ball hog. But that's
Yeah.
neither.
Harding was 89th and out of 100 on the JUCO top 100. I was surprised to see him not do well, but at the same time, Darren Horn's not going to play someone who can't play their defense. And I have to say, dude, I don't know. I know every JUCO program is different. They're not all made the same, but like a lot of JUCO is go here, play, get noticed, and get picked up. Darren Horn runs a team defense. There's no one-on-one in Darren Horn's defense. You have to be good, you have to be able to pick it up. That's a reason Adam Alita couldn't play last year. He couldn't hit threes and he couldn't play defense, so he didn't play. And so Harding, the jury's out on him still. He's not probably going to get much of a chance the rest of the year. I don't think he's done. I think he's too talented to just like write him off. Hines, no disrespect, I'm okay either way. If he wants to come back and be a guy who's a depth chart piece, fine. Yeah. Otherwise, I don't, whatever.
I just share from a standpoint of these programs going forward as being ones that might be able to elevate the league. You're going to see Green Bay doing it with primarily freshmen, and building their program that way. We've got 3 really good ones coming in next year, and Horn, hopefully, I think I'd like to see him build more that way, because I think the best teams, the best programs, get some of those guys. Now, Cleveland State's the second best team in the league, and they just picked up a pile of guys from wherever they could get them. So, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but I think the sustainability of building a program comes from having guys that you put 4+ years of time into.
Yeah, Cleveland State's got that's a whole different story. They got a coach that's going to be coaching at a Power 5 in the next 5 years. I think. I mean, Dennis Gates. If I could work for him as his PR guy, I would, because I absolutely love the guy. But anyway, all right, man. Well, hey, listen, I really appreciate you taking the time with us. A little bit longer than we wanted or than we thought, but it was great information. I knew that this was going to happen. I tried to keep all the other ones kind of short and sweet, but like I can't have a conversation with the Phear the Phoenix guys that's short and sweet, because there's so much information you guys are willing to give, and it's all good information. So really appreciate it. Jim, why don't you tell the fans where they can find you guys, you, Brian, and Phear the Phoenix, and then give me Twitter, website, if you have Facebook as well.
Yeah, I mean, so personally, I'm at Jim Sarow on Twitter. That's where you can find me. Currently most noted for doing my pregame fleets every game. That's my jam this year. Then you'll also find at Phear the Phoenix. That is Brian handles he's at the controls of that, does a great job. And also have a message board. It's a Phear the Phoenix Pro board, and trying to build up some traffic on there. So, all right.
Awesome. Right. Really appreciate it, Jim. Thanks so much, man.
Thank you. Take care.